June Lockhart's story isn't just about an actress who became famous on television. It's about a woman who lived 100 years on her own terms, brave, outspoken, and full of surprises. Her career started when Hollywood was young and ended with her name etched into history. But behind her calm smile and graceful presence was someone who fought quietly against the limits placed on women in her industry. She was fired, rejected, and underestimated, yet she never stopped standing tall. June Lockhart was born on June 25, 1925, in New York City, but she was practically born on stage. Her father, Gene Lockhart, was already a well-known actor who had performed in more than 300 movies and even earned an Oscar nomination. Her mother, Kathleen Lockhart, was a British actress who had brought her charm and elegance from London's theatre world to America. Acting wasn't just something they did, it was who they were. When June arrived, her parents named her after the month they got married, a fitting symbol of how deeply their family was tied to both love and performance. June didn't grow up like most children. While other kids played with toys or went to the park, she spent her days in theater wings and movie sets, surrounded by scripts, costumes, and makeup lights. Her father's powerful voice often filled the house as he rehearsed, while her mother added warmth and grace. At dinner, they talked about plays, stage cues, and upcoming performances. Acting wasn't just a job, it was the family language. It was natural that by the time she could speak in full sentences, June was already learning lines from her parents' scripts. At just 5 years old, she was being trained in diction, learning to pronounce every word perfectly, while other children were learning the alphabet. When her parents rehearsed, she would sit nearby, memorizing every word. It wasn't about pushing her into fame, it was about including her in the family craft. By 8, she was already performing at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, appearing in a major production of Peter Ibbetson. She didn't have any lines, but her presence alone made people notice her. In 1938, when she was only 13, June appeared in the movie A Christmas Carol as Belinda Cratchit. Her father played Bob Cratchit, and her mother played Mrs. Cratchit. The warmth and chemistry in their scenes came naturally because it wasn't just acting, it was family life captured on film. The Lockharts had become part of movie history together. 2 years later, June took on a more serious role in All This in Heaven 2, performing alongside the great Bette Davis. It was a powerful, emotional story, and June had to rise to the occasion. Watching Davis up close taught her what true acting discipline looked like. While other child actors faded away as they got older, June kept growing stronger. By 1941, at just 16, she played Gary Cooper's sister in Sergeant York, which became the biggest box office hit of the year. Her performance touched people deeply, and Cooper was so impressed he gave her a Bible with a personal note of thanks. But even in success, June saw the darker side of Hollywood. During filming of Meet Me in St. Louis, she witnessed a disturbing scene. Judy Garland, already a major star, bullied the child actress Margaret O'Brien. June couldn't stay quiet. She stood up for O'Brien in front of the crew, even when Garland threatened her. That moment showed the courage that would define June's life. She wasn't afraid of anyone, not even a Hollywood powerhouse. Her determination was tested again while filming Son of Lassie in the freezing Scottish Highlands. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and she wore thin costumes meant for summer. She caught pneumonia but refused to stop filming. Even with a 103-degree fever, she kept going because she was afraid of being replaced. That experience showed how much pressure young actresses were under, and how tough she was to survive it. Then came She-Wolf of London, a horror movie that turned into a nightmare behind the scenes. She spent hours in painful makeup sessions, breathing in toxic fumes, and working through the night for 18 days straight. Her skin blistered, and when the final movie cut out most of those scenes, she felt like all her suffering had been for nothing. In 1947, studio executives tried to change her image. They offered her huge contracts if she agreed to pose for pin-up photos, but June refused. She didn't want to be turned into a sex symbol. She had been raised in a family that respected art, not publicity. Her parents supported her decision even though it cost her big opportunities. She chose dignity over money, a brave move for a young woman in 1940s Hollywood. That same year, she performed in the Broadway play For Love or Money. It ran for 228 shows and became a critical success. Suddenly, audiences saw her not as a child star, but as a talented actress in her own right. Newspapers said she had arrived on Broadway with the suddenness of a comet. On March 28, 1948, she received a Tony Award for Outstanding Newcomer, a category so rare it existed only once. That night, the world heard her name and understood she wasn't just the daughter of famous actors, she was June Lockhart, a star in her own right. Over the next few years, she shared the stage with some of the greatest names in theater. In Joan of Lorraine, she performed alongside Ingrid Bergman, who was at the height of her fame. Bergman earned thousands of dollars a week, and the theater was packed every night. June watched and learned from her, realizing that fame wasn't about glamour, it was about dedication. She performed 8 shows a week, no understudy, no breaks. Her work ethic became legendary. By the 1950s, she had moved easily between stage and television. In 1953, she received her first Emmy nomination for Best Actress, though Lucille Ball won instead. Ironically, that loss opened the door to the role that would define her career. When CBS launched Lassie, they remembered June's earlier screen test. In 1958, she joined the cast as Ruth Martin, the loving mother everyone wished they had. Her first day on set was tough. Her young co-star, John Provost, was mischievous and kept kicking her under the table during a scene. She calmly pointed a finger at him and told him to stop. That firm but kind authority set the tone for their 6 years together. Off-screen, she looked after him like a real mom, even sneaking food into her dressing room to make sure he ate properly. But behind the heartwarming show, there were darker moments. June began noticing how the Lassie dogs were treated by trainers and started speaking up for better animal care. Her humor helped lighten the atmosphere, but her moral compass stayed strong. When her contract limited what products she could endorse and what roles she could play, she found quiet ways to rebel. She added small lines to scripts, pushed for more independence in her character, and insisted that her on-screen husband treat her as an equal. These were small acts of defiance, but in the 1960s, they were revolutionary. When CBS refused to meet her salary demand of $5,000 per episode, she left the show. Fans were furious, sending thousands of letters demanding her return, but she stood her ground. That standoff made her one of the first women in television to openly fight for equal pay. In 1965, she landed another iconic role, Maureen Robinson in Lost in Space. Competing against more than 100 actresses, June prepared by studying physics and space travel. During her audition, when the director staged a fake alien attack, she didn't panic. She calmly came up with a plan to protect her family. That quick thinking won her the part. Filming Lost in Space was grueling. The costumes were heavy, the hours long, and one water scene nearly caused her to drown when the set flooded. Her fear of tight spaces made those scenes even harder, but she kept going, asking for changes to make the work safer. Off-screen, she became a mentor and friend to her young co-stars, Bill Mumy and Angela Cartwright. Far from the strict TV mom she played, she was a rock and roll fan who took them to real concerts. She'd sneak them into the famous Whiskey A Go-Go Club to see live performances by Simon and Garfunkel, The Doors, and even early shows by the Allman Brothers. She once hired their first band, Hourglass, to play at her Halloween party in 1967, before they became legends. Music became her escape from Hollywood pressure. Between takes, she blasted Beatles records like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band to keep the cast's spirits up. When the show's later episodes became silly, like the infamous Great Vegetable Rebellion, she coped by turning the set into a music-filled space. Her love for rock was genuine, and her young co-stars called her a rock and roll goddess. But her strongest moment came when she stood up to Jonathan Harris, who played Dr. Smith. As his character became more comedic, he began improvising lines that insulted June's character, calling her sexist names. She finally walked off set and demanded a meeting with the producers. After a 3-hour argument, they sided with her. Harris apologized, and the insults stopped. Once again, June Lockhart proved she wasn't afraid to speak up for respect. When Petticoat Junction lost its lead actress, Bea Benaderet, in 1968, CBS turned to June to revive the show. She joined as Dr. Janet Craig, a kind and intelligent woman who brought warmth back to the series. It was a personal victory for June, who had privately struggled with fertility issues. Playing a nurturing figure on screen gave her comfort, but the show ended 2 years later as television moved into a new era. Around that time, she became co-host of the Miss USA pageant with Bob Barker. From 1967 to 1973, she was a familiar face on stage, helping crown new winners every year. But in 1972, it all ended suddenly. Tabloids discovered that she was living with a younger man, John Cannon, who was 25 years her junior. Even though they weren't doing anything wrong, the pageant's morality clause forced her out. She was fired not for her work, but for refusing to hide her personal life. Despite the scandal, she kept her sense of humor. During the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, where she often appeared on floats, a strong wind once knocked her over. She got up, bruised but smiling, and joked that it was all part of the show. Her interest in space never faded. In the 1970s, she worked with NASA, narrating public service messages and even visiting mission control. She once sat in the control room during a launch, listening as astronauts woke up to a song written by her father. The commander radioed down, laughing, and asked what Lassie's mom was doing in mission control. NASA adored her, and she loved them right back. In 1969, she had turned down what would become television's most famous mom role, Carol Brady on The Brady Bunch. She didn't want to be typecast again as a TV mother. Florence Henderson took the part, and the show became a cultural phenomenon. June later admitted she regretted saying no, but she never let it define her. What people didn't know was that while she was playing wholesome mothers on TV, she was also a huge rock fan. She adored the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and David Bowie. She even carried a photo of Bowie in her wallet. Her love for music made her one of the most surprising figures in Hollywood, an elegant actress who could quote Shakespeare one day and rock out to Bowie the next. Her love of music influenced the younger actors around her. Bill Mumy credited her for inspiring his own music career. She taught them that art wasn't about image, it was about emotion and truth. Even NASA astronauts later told her that watching Lost in Space had inspired them to reach for the stars. By her late 90s, June was still sharp and full of spirit. She lived quietly in New York, doing yoga, reading newspapers every morning, and still enjoying her favorite wine. When fans met her at autograph events, she amazed them by doing yoga stretches right on the spot. She never won an Emmy, but she earned something rarer, 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one for film and one for television, both awarded on the same day in 1960. She also won Broadway honors, including a Tony Award and a Donaldson Award. In 2005, NASA hung her poster aboard the International Space Station, and in 2024, they awarded her a medal for her public support of space exploration. Even now, younger generations are rediscovering her story online. Clips from her old shows and stories about her friendship with the Allman Brothers are viral on TikTok. People call her the rock rebel behind the TV mom. June Lockhart turned 100 in 2025. There was no big Hollywood party, just a quiet day with her family. She's still the same woman she's always been, strong, curious, funny, and free. After a century in the spotlight, she remains exactly who she was as a little girl watching her parents on stage, someone who loved the art of storytelling and never let anyone else write her script.